Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into some big questions, some foundational ideas about how we organize ourselves, as societies. We're looking at an audio source that presents a perspective that, well, it really challenges some deeply ingrained assumptions.
Yeah, it does. It's an excerpt exploring, as it puts it, the truth about government, violence, and personal protection. It's quite a fascinating, maybe even unsettling look at authority.
Definitely unsettling for some, I imagine.
Our mission here really is to unpack the main arguments from this source. It pushes for a pretty radical rethink of how we view government and its role.
Hmm.
And it's important, I think, to grapple with different viewpoints, especially on topics this fundamental, even if they make us uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And the speaker and the source, they start right off with their own story. They identify as a former devout statist.
Which is quite a term.
It is. Someone who deeply believed in government, almost religiously, you could say. They admit they used to vehemently spread the mythology of it, but now they see that belief as utterly irrational and insane. That's a huge shift.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it? That personal struggle, the kicking and screaming they mention it involved, it signals just how challenging these ideas might be.
Yeah.
And then they dive straight into that common worry, the one you hear a lot. Without government, people have different beliefs, different moral standards.
Right, the what if question.
Exactly. What if there's no government and somebody thinks it's okay to kill me and steal my stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It's a legitimate fear, and the source acknowledges that this is often where the argument for government begins.
That fear, yeah, the fear of chaos, of everyone having conflicting ideas of right and wrong. It often pushes people towards what this source calls the authoritarian solution.
hmm
The idea that instead of individuals sorting things out, we need some central power to make one set of rules for everyone.
But, and this is where the critique starts to bite, the source points out that while people hope this authority will make the right rules,
Mm-hmm.
they rarely explain how that's supposed to happen
Yeah.
or why it would.
Because these rules are just written by people.
Right, exactly. Written by, as the source rather pointedly puts it, often exceptionally power-hungry, corrupt human beings.
Mm.
So the question becomes, why would their rules necessarily be any better or more just than the rules individuals might follow? The argument here is that believing in government doesn't magically make everyone agree on morality.
No, instead, what creates a potential for bigger conflict.
That's the claim. It creates a mechanism to escalate disagreements, potentially turning personal disputes into, well, large-scale oppression or even war.
That idea of expecting authorities to have some kind of superhuman virtues, it leads right into a pretty stark historical point the source makes.
Which is?
Well, this perspective argues history doesn't show benevolent authorities. Often, it shows the opposite. It makes the point that, one person with a twisted morality might harm dozens,
Yeah.
but give that same twisted morality control of the machine called government, and suddenly it can lead to the murder of millions.
That's a really sobering argument. That the very thing meant to stop violence could actually become the biggest source of it.
Precisely. And it builds on that, claiming that when people look for an all-powerful good guy in government,
Mm-hmm.
they inadvertently end up creating all-powerful bad guys. They build these huge government monsters, hoping for protection, only to find the monsters themselves become the bigger threat.
A kind of Frankenstein scenario applied to the state.
Sort of, yeah. And this brings us right to a really core idea in the source: the legitimization of evil.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
The insight here, or the claim anyway, is that the very act of creating governmental authority doesn't just concentrate power.
Mm-hmm.
It inherently sanctifies actions. It makes actions seem okay, even necessary, when they'd be seen as totally immoral if just any individual did them.
Right, like taking money by force, for example.
Exactly. The source flatly states that all the belief in authority ever does is introduce more immoral violence into society. And it's not an accident. It's framed as a fundamental truism based upon the nature of the belief in authority.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. How does it justify saying authority only introduces immoral violence?
It hinges on a distinction between different kinds of force.
Right. The source suggests, pretty much everyone agrees, force is sometimes okay, sometimes not.
Yeah, aggressive force, starting violence, stealing, assault, murder, most people see that as wrong,
Well,
moral.
justified, yeah.
But using force defensively to protect the innocent, that's generally seen as justified, even moral, sometimes noble.
Okay, so the source labels these, what, good force and bad force.
Exactly. Good force is the kind anyone has a right to use, like self-defense. Bad force is the kind normal people don't have the right to commit, like initiating aggression.
Got it. So if everyone already has the right to use good force,
Then what do government agents actually add? That's the crucial question the source poses.
and the answer, according to this perspective,
The source argues that people imagine agents of authority have the right to use force not just defensively, like everyone else, but in other situations too. Situations where a normal person initiating force would be considered wrong.
I see where this is going. So if they're allowed to use force in additional situations,
Then, logically, the source concludes law is the attempt to legitimize bad force.
wow. So things like taxation, conscription, maybe certain regulations enforced under threat?
From this perspective, yes, they'd be seen as examples of this bad force, actions that would be immoral if you or I tried to do them to our neighbors.
That leads straight to the claim that authority is the permission to commit evil.
A very strong statement. Permission to do things that would be obviously wrong if anyone else did them.
And it doesn't spare democracy either, does it?
Not at all. It dismisses the idea that voting makes you free or gives you real voice. It calls democracy nothing more than majority-approved immoral violence.
Because even if a majority agrees, it's still legitimizing what the source considers aggression.
That's the argument, that democracy can't fix things because, fundamentally, all democracy does is legitimize aggression and unjustified violence.
It's quite a claim. The source seems aware of how counterintuitive this sounds.
Oh, definitely. It suggests the logic is actually so simple and obvious that an enormous amount of propaganda is needed in order to train people not to see it.
The idea being that we're taught to see state violence differently.
Right. Taught that when violence is made legal and done by authority, it somehow changes from immoral violence into righteous law enforcement.
Implying there's a different moral standard for government agents.
Yeah.
That superhuman idea again.
Exactly. And it concludes that inherently righteous force, which is basically defensive force.
A good force.
Yeah, that good force doesn't need any special law or authority to make it okay. It's already justified by its nature.
So let's recap that core distinction again because it seems crucial.
Okay.
You have good force, defensive actions, inherently justified, anyone can use it.
Right.
And bad force, aggressive actions like theft, assault, murder, inherently immoral.
Mm-hmm.
And the source's punchline is,
That the only thing that law and government are needed for is to attempt to legitimize immoral force. That's it. That's the only unique thing government adds to society, more inherently unjust violence.
so that really brings us back to the central and, yeah, very provocative point we started with.
Which is that the belief in authority itself, far from reducing conflict or violence,
Yeah.
actually introduces more immoral violence into society, and that this isn't just a bug, it's a feature, a truism based upon the nature of the belief in authority.
It's a fundamental challenge to how most people think about the state.
Absolutely.
And so we'll leave you, the listener, with that powerful final thought directly from the source material. No one who understands this simple truth would ever claim that government is essential to human civilization. A truly radical perspective. Something to think about, certainly how this view might challenge your own ideas about justice, peace, and how societies work, or maybe how they could work differently.